All right, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube, we are live for today's midday update. For today's session on Thursday, October the 24th, 2019. Big day for me here. It's my sister's birthday, so great day. And let's go ahead and get started with this update, guys. If this is your first time watching us, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. We hit these every single day at 9 a.m. Eastern Time and around this time. And make sure to like the video as well if you do enjoy what we are talking about. If you guys do like the video, that really helps us out greatly. So do appreciate if you guys can go ahead and do that for us. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with this update. A couple of economic data points came through this morning. Georgie covered a majority of what came in before the U.S. session, namely those durable goods orders and the European Union monetary policy statement and Draghi's last press conference as the head of the European Central Bank. And what we had this morning after the US Open, just a couple of PMI figures, also some new home sales and natural gas storage report came through. And it was a bit of a mixed data release. The flash manufacturing PMI number was a pretty nice beat, 51.5 versus 50.7 expected. And US flash services PMI came in right at expectations, 51 versus 51 expected. That being said, your durable goods orders, not the durable goods orders, sorry, the market manufacturing PMI numbers, the 51.5 versus 50.9 expected, that was a 6-month high. So that was a good data point. However, new home sales missed. They came in at 701 versus 702 expected. And the median price came in lower than what we saw prior. Prior was 328,000 and current was 299,000. So a bit of a miss on that front. And overall, a bit of a mixed signal here. The natural gas numbers as well came in right in line with expectations. Again, natural gas report not really as volatile as the crude oil report, simply because natural gas analysts tend to get it right. And when it's right, there's not much repricing to be had. And so it doesn't really move on the back of that. However, expected or indicated range was 87 to 89 billion cubic feet of natural gas inventories. We came in at 87, so right in line with those expectations. And outside of that, throughout the U.S. session, we did have New York Fed accepting 89.2 billion of the 89.2 billion in bids submitted in the overnight repo operation, with the max being $120 billion repo. What else do we have here? Um, White House advisor Navarro mentioned that phase 1 of US-China trade agreement adopts virtually entire chapter from May agreement on intellectual property. And that's really all I'm seeing on this squawk. On this one, I'm seeing that we do have Vice President Pence, sorry guys, Vice President Pence speaking the moment. And he did say that Trump is determined to build a China relationship based on candor, fairness, and mutual respect. U.S. will no longer hope that economic engagement alone will transform China into a free and open society respecting rule of law. That came in at 11:53. 11:51, we had a squawk come in that U.S. has issued a waiver for some transactions involving China's Costco. So China's equivalent of Costco, U.S. has issued some waivers on that. So a little bit of optimism on that front. Also, some geopolitical news came in. 11:50, U.S. President Trump says he liked his conversations with SDF leader. I would imagine that's Syrian Defense Forces. There is a mutual respect. Perhaps it is time for the Kurds to start heading to the oil region. And that is pretty much what we had on today's session, outside of Mr. Trump coming in again at 10:22 and repeating his familiar Fed criticism, calling on the Fed to lower rates faster, noting that low rates are international, and he was kind of pointing towards the negative German rates, the fact that the German government is getting, well, not the government, but the banks are getting paid to hold balances in Germany based on the NERP, negative interest rate policy. All right, so that's all that we have on that front. As far as the remainder of today's session, do not really see anything on the agenda. So it's likely going to be a bit of a quieter session as far as the economic data points and releases are concerned. All right, guys, so that's what we have on that front. Let me switch on over to the charts and give you guys a quick overview of what we are looking for on these markets here, and we'll go from there, guys. So let me switch the squawk on over. Here we go. So you guys should be seeing the quote board and my charts showing up in just a moment. All right, and the quote board is showing us crude oil, 334,000 contracts. Our daily change percentage is up 0.43%. We are currently above the previous day close from 55.85, and we're pretty much right at the open right now, 56.19. I'm just finding a little bit of support at the moment. So we are above previous day close, which is technically considered bullish. However, we're currently battling at the open, so it's a little bit of a mixed signal right now. Or S&P 500 here, 639,000 contracts. Again, relatively light on the session. We did have good action to start the session, and then it kind of slowed down into basically where we're at right now, and not too much on that front. We are up 0.03%. We're pretty much right at the previous day close. However, we are below our US cash session open. So at this point, it's looking again mixed, down from the US session open, but we are at the moment above the previous day close. So a bit of a mixed signal. If we can flush back below previous day close, we'll be back below our open on the US session and below the previous day close from yesterday's session, which should signal a little bit more weakness coming into the latter half of the session. All right, so that's what the quote board shows us. Let's get rid of that. Now let's take a quick peek over at the pivot charts. And on the pivot chart here, you got crude oil to the left-hand side. You guys will see basically what we are mentioning here. We got that break over the 54.80s, 55.20s yesterday, and we got a little bit of a pullback into that level. And now you can see we've broken those previous highs. So as we mentioned to start the week, and the story's kind of continued on into this week. We were mentioning there was a slight bullish undertone, slight bullish sentiment in crude coming into the beginning of the week. And we're just seeing that follow through coming into tomorrow, which is the last day of the week. And so we'll see if the bulls can continue on with this or if they find some support. Resistance right now should be at your R1 56.70. We have not reached up there just quite yet. But today's session is honestly looking very choppy. So I'm not sure if we're going to get that move back up to there today. We might just be consolidating for the remainder of the session, to be quite frank. On S&P 500, the 3,000, what was this level? 3,015s or so remain a key level. You guys will see big double top there yesterday. And a nice reversal off of today's open. That's this guy right here. Just a nice flush lower from the 13.75 down into, I was actually sub 3,000 for a rotation. So that was a pretty nice sell off on this morning session. That was really your opportunity. The first 15-20 minutes or so of the session, if you missed that downside, you'd really be struggling within this range here, because this was a potential move back to bearish, and so it was a bit of a slow grind as it came up. Very easy to get stuck in here, anticipating continuation of shorts while this thing kind of steadily grinds higher. All right, so what we are seeing now, however, is a nice little double top forming at the opening range low, and we're kind of selling off here on some volume, kind of indicative of what we were just mentioning here. So as it stands, R1 is resistance. That is the 30.1370 or so, and our pivot level right around the 97.80s or so remains a support. So we've tested the upside, tested the R1, failed, tested the pivot, failed, and so what does that sound like, guys? That is consolidation. So we're stuck between R1 and pivot at this moment in time. Until one of those two breaks, I anticipate more consolidation. All right, that's what I got on the pivot charts. If I jump onto our tick charts here, guys, you'll see a lot of consolidation on crude, and there's no real surprise. Georgie made a great point this morning. The fact that yesterday, you guys will see, we opened near the 53.80s, and the previous day close was 55.85. All right, so almost a $2 gain on the session yesterday. When you tend to have a trending day like that, the following day and or days will tend to be consolidations of that move. All right, so yes, we did have a nice big volatile move yesterday in crude, and it makes sense that we kind of consolidate before the next move. Whether that move resolves to the upside or to the downside, that's to be determined. But as for today's session, it really comes as no surprise that we're kind of stuck within a range. All right, and so further to that point, what is your range on crude? Well, your range is basically the 56 level up into those 56.50s or so. That's kind of the range that we've been stuck in today. We opened kind of right in the middle, sold off. This is our current session low around the 55 or 56s. Current session highs around 56.45, and we are literally just stuck in between that. All right, you guys are just seeing some rotation. So nothing really exciting in this market at the moment. You might be able to pick up a long here for a range trade back up to the top, or you might be able to pick up a short here for a range trade back to the bottom. This is not one of those days where you're looking for home runs in this market. All right, that's what I got on crude. S&P 500. Let's open this guy up as well. So you guys will see this was a big level. I was actually anticipating a breakout of this level last or two or 3 days ago, but the sellers held it and then they pressed it back to fresh lows right into the lower end of the range, which we had mentioned. So that was a great day, and we've kind of since we've recovered that overnight, and then on the US session today we just sank lower. You guys can see nice double top here. Selling's really starting to come out. And back at the overnight low, this is kind of what we were mentioning. Now the fact that we have broken back below previous day close, you know, it's no longer mixed. It's bearish on the US cash session, and we are bearish based on what we had from yesterday's close. So now you might be able to find some rotations to sell into. Where would you be targeting? Probably the pivot for today's session right around these 98s. That's where I'm seeing some big bid inventory sitting at the moment. All right, so that's what I got for you guys today. And actually, that's not everything that I got for you guys today. We've still got to cover this guy, the TradePro Performance Index, and then we will sign off on today's update. All right, so today's session, not the strongest results. In fact, a majority of the traders on the session of the three were down on the day. However, we did have 37% up, 18% flat. So overall, still majority of traders were either flat or green on the session. But as far as individual numbers, a majority were down based on all of that. So not the best numbers. Honestly, quite surprising today, because usually when we have you know, under 60% results, trade pros tend to bounce back well the next day. This is the first time in quite some time that we didn't have the bounce back that we wanted. But that being said, you know, you can't judge a whole career on one day. All right, and so we still got another day to close out the week strong. Overall, it's been a pretty good week. You can see 66%, 74, almost 60, and 55. So not bad numbers. Our monthly average remains around 68%, right around in line with what we've been seeing on a monthly basis since we started tracking these results. All right, guys. So that's going to be all that I have on today's session. As mentioned, not too much on the agenda. Going into the close of the session. So just keep an ear out on any potential squawks that come through, and you guys should be in a good position. You now know your levels for crude oil, for S&P 500, and we're good to do that. All right, so everybody have a great afternoon, and we will see you tomorrow. Good luck and good trading, guys. Take care.